Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to The Body Speaks. Are you listening? I'm someone who healed from rheumatoid arthritis, a condition that attacked my body when I was 27 years old. Over the years of searching and learning and doing the deep inner work, I discovered something that changed everything. The body is our alert system. And for a long time, my body had been trying to get my attention for decades before I finally understood what it was saying. I'm so glad you're here. I'm Susan, certified somatic trauma-informed coach, and all of my credentials are in the show notes below. Last episode, we sat with fatigue, fertility issues, and fibromyalgia, 3 conditions connected deeply to the nervous system and the long-term effects of emotional stress and trauma. If you haven't listened to that episode, please do. The fibromyalgia section in particular names a connection that medicine rarely acknowledges and that many people in this community have been waiting years to hear. Throughout this series, we explore different physical symptoms, conditions, and diseases, not to replace your medical care, but to help you understand that your body is sending you alert signals asking that you pay attention. Every symptom, every diagnosis, every condition that arrives in your body is a message. And when you learn to understand that language, the whole picture of your healing begins to change. Today, we move through 4 G's: grief, gut health, guilt, and gout. 4 very different conditions that each in their own way are the body's expression of something that has been held, suppressed, or crystallized for far too long. So let's start with grief. Grief is the only condition in this series that's not a diagnosis. It's not a disease, a symptom, or a disorder. It is the most natural, most universal, most thoroughly human response to loss. And yet for many of us, it is one of the least well-supported experiences of our lives. We are, as a culture, extraordinarily uncomfortable with grief. We give it a short window. The funeral, the sympathy cards, the weeks of allowance before the world expects you to be functional again. And then we move on, or at least we're expected to. Or we perform moving on because performing's easier than explaining that grief does not work on a schedule. The grief I want to talk about today is not only the grief of death, though that is, of course, one of the most profound forms of grief. It is also the grief of a relationship that ended, especially a long one, especially one that was complicated, one where you were grieving not just the person, but the life you thought you were going to have. The grief of a version of yourself that was slowly lost along the way. The grief of years given to something that cost more than it gave. The grief of what was never said, what was never received, what was hoped for and never arrived. The grief that has no name is often the heaviest. The loss of what might have been, the slow erosion of a self, the goodbye that was never said to the person you were before everything changed. These griefs are real, and the body holds them with exactly the same faithfulness as the grief the world acknowledges. In the body, grief lives most commonly in the chest and the lungs. Traditional Chinese medicine has known this for thousands of years. The lungs are the organs of grief, and the heart holds what the lungs cannot release. When grief is suppressed or unprocessed, the chest becomes heavy. The breath becomes shallow. There's a physical weight in the sternum, a pressure that has no medical explanation, an ache that arrives not from an injury, but from something that has been held too long without a place to go. The throat is also significant. The throat chakra governs expression, and grief that has never been spoken, loss has never been named aloud, can accumulate in the throat as tightness, as the lump that arrives before tears that never come, as a voice that becomes quieter and quieter until it is almost silent. In IFS, unprocessed grief is almost always connected to an exile, a part carrying the weight of the loss, often a very young part who experienced something that was too large and too overwhelming to be metabolized at that time. The managers keep that exile contained, keep busy, staying functional, performing okayness. But the exile is there, and the body, which does not lie, expresses what the exile holds in the tissue and the breath and the weight in the sternum. So the question we're sitting with is, what loss have you not yet fully grieved? Not the loss you have named, the loss underneath it, the self, the dream, the life, the years. What has never had its full space to be mourned? Now let's look at the chakra connection. Grief involves two energy centers most directly, the heart and the throat. The heart chakra governs love and loss in equal measure. Grief that has been suppressed or inadequately supported shows up here as heaviness, tightness, constriction. The chest that cannot fully open to a deep breath is often a chest holding something that has never been fully allowed to break. The throat chakra is the chakra of expression. Grief that has never been spoken accumulates here. The inability to talk about what happened, the loss of the voice that used to express freely, the swallowed tears and the words that never arrived, all of these live in the throat chakra. The invitation is to place your hand on your chest. Take 3 slow breaths directly into your hand. And on the exhale, if anything wants to come, a sound, a sigh, a word, a tear, let it. The body knows how to grieve when it is finally given permission. So let's talk about the nervous system connection. The body perceives grief as a genuine threat to well-being, and the nervous system responds accordingly, keeping itself in a heightened state of alert for the duration of the grieving process. This is why grief is so physically exhausting. The immune system is suppressed. Sleep is disrupted. The heart can literally ache, a phenomenon called stress cardiomyopathy or broken heart syndrome, in which intense grief causes the heart muscle to weaken temporarily. Long-term unprocessed grief maintains the nervous system in this state of chronic alert without the relief of resolution, which is why grief that has nowhere to go eventually expresses itself through the body in conditions like chronic fatigue, immune dysregulation, and persistent pain. Grief is not a mental event. It is a whole body physiological process, and it deserves to be supported as such. So perhaps a life lesson about grief, and I'm not talking about grief as in death of a loved one. I'm talking grief about a relationship or not mourning, parts of you that held you back, whether it was from dreams or a relationship. So perhaps a life lesson with grief, when it keeps returning or sits unacknowledged for years, often carries a life lesson about allowing, about learning to let what is painful be painful without rushing past it or managing it away. So many of us were never taught how to grieve. We were taught to be strong, to move on, to look on the bright side. And the grief that was not allowed its full expression did not disappear. It waited. The life lesson the body may be asking is, what would it feel like to finally, fully, completely let yourself feel the loss? Not to, just get stuck in it, but to honor it. Because what is honored can move. And what moves can heal. Learning to connect with what your body is telling you is the first step. Grief is one of the few experiences in which the body genuinely needs to be moved, literally. Gentle walking in nature supports the processing of grief in the nervous system in ways that stillness sometimes cannot. Omega-3 fatty acids support the immune system during grief, and the practice of speaking the loss out loud to a trusted person, to a therapist, to a journal, or even to an empty room begins to give the grief in the throat and the chest somewhere to go. Now let's talk about gut health. We spoke about digestive issues in episode 6. The gut as the body's most honest messenger, the abdominal tightening before a difficult conversation, the connection between digestive symptoms and the experience of not being able to stomach what was happening in a relationship. Today, I want to go a level deeper into the microbiome, into the gut-brain axis, into what is now being called our second brain, and what happens to it when we live in a state of chronic emotional stress. The gut microbiome is an ecosystem of approximately 40 trillion microorganisms living in the digestive tract. These organisms are not passive passengers. They produce neurotransmitters, regulate the immune system, influence your mood, affect inflammation, and communicate directly with the brain through the vagus nerve in both directions. Approximately 90% of the body's serotonin, which is the neurotransmitter most associated with mood, well-being, and the ability to feel calm, is produced not in the brain, but in the gut. When the gut is dysregulated, the mood is dysregulated. When the mood is dysregulated, the gut reflects it. This is not a metaphor. It is a biodirectional, physiological relationship that science is only beginning to fully map, but that the body has always known. What chronic emotional stress does to the microbiome is significant. Cortisol and other stress hormones directly alter the composition of gut bacteria, reducing the diversity of beneficial organisms and creating conditions in which inflammatory species thrive. The gut lining, which is supposed to be selectively permeable, becomes more permeable under prolonged stress, allowing inflammatory particles into the bloodstream that trigger immune responses throughout the body. For people who have lived in emotionally abusive relationships or who grew up in volatile households, the microbiome has often been in a state of chronic stress-induced dysregulation for years and even decades. This is why so many people in the healing community find that their gut symptoms improve significantly, not just when they change their diet, though diet matters, but when their sense of safety changes. The gut, like every other system in the body, heals most readily in a state of felt safety. So the question worth sitting with is, what does my gut know that my mind is still processing? And have I ever sat quietly with it and actually asked? The chakra connection is the solar plexus and the heart. The solar plexus chakra, the digestive fire, the metabolism of experience, the center of personal power and self-trust. A solar plexus chronically depleted through suppression of personal power or the long-term stress of an unsafe environment produces exactly the conditions for gut dysregulation. Reduced digestive enzyme production, altered motility, and chronic inflammation. And the heart chakra is all about grief and heartbreak, and profound emotional disconnection directly affect gut motility and microbiome composition. The heart and the gut are in continuous conversation through the vagus nerve. When the heart chakra is grieving, the gut will feel it. So an invitation would be, perhaps after your next meal, just sit for 5 minutes. Not working, not scrolling, just your hand on your belly, breathing. Let the gut do its work. in an atmosphere of genuine rest. Chronic psychological stress, the kind that comes from ongoing emotional abuse, coercive control, or a volatile childhood, directly alters the composition, diversity, and function of the gut microbiome. Cortisol suppresses beneficial bacteria and encourages inflammatory species. Prolonged stress increases intestinal permeability, allowing inflammatory particles into the bloodstream. And the gut's serotonin production, which governs mood, digestion, and the regulation of the entire enteric nervous system, is directly impaired by chronic threat states. The people who heal their gut most completely are often not the ones who find the perfect probiotic, though that helps. They are the ones whose inner environment finally becomes safe enough for the gut to begin its work of restoration. Now, perhaps if you have had a lot of gut issues, a life lesson may be, especially when it's chronically disrupted despite dietary efforts, often carries a life lesson about the difference between nourishment and consumption, about learning to take in what is genuinely good for you, not just food, but relationships and the information you take in, the emotional environment you inhabit. The recurring question is, what am I actually being fed emotionally, relationally, and spiritually? And is it nourishing me? Or is it depleting me? Learning to connect with what your body's telling you is the first step. A diverse plant-rich diet feeds the microbiome directly. Fermented foods and prebiotic foods like garlic, onion, and asparagus feed the bacteria already present. And the nervous system practices throughout this series address the gut at the level of its deepest regulation. Now let's talk about guilt. Now, guilt is obviously not a physical diagnosis, but it is one of the most physically significant emotions the body carries. And for the people who find their way to this series, people who have lived in or are living with emotional abuse, coercive control, or the quiet devastation of a relationship built on manipulation, guilt is often the heaviest thing in the room. I want to say something important before we go further. Not all guilt is yours. In fact, for many of the people in this community, the guilt you carry is guilt that was installed by someone else. Guilt that was used as a tool to control your behavior, to keep you in line, to prevent you from leaving or speaking up or trusting your own perception. Guilt that arrived on cue whenever you began to consider your own needs. That kind of guilt is not a moral signal. It is a mechanism of abuse. Guilt that arrives precisely when you try to prioritize yourself is not your conscious speaking. It is someone else's training. And learning to distinguish between authentic guilt, the genuine signal that your values and your actions have diverged, and installed guilt, the automated response to someone else's control, is one of the most important pieces of work in healing from emotional abuse. But guilt does not only come from abuse. It also is a deeply universal human experience. The guilt of staying in a relationship you knew was damaging, the guilt of leaving and the collateral hurt that followed, the guilt toward the children, the family, the person themselves, the guilt of not leaving sooner, of not seeing it sooner, of having loved someone who caused harm. Survivor's guilt, caretaker's guilt, the guilt of beginning to heal when others around you are still suffering. All of this guilt lives in the body. Louise Hay connects guilt directly to mid-back pain, that characteristic ache between the shoulder blades, as if something is pressing on you from behind, as if the weight of what you feel responsible for has a physical location. Guilt also accumulates in the solar plexus, where personal power and self-worth live, and where the chronic message of not deserving, not being enough, not having the right to move freely forward compresses the very center of the self. In internal family systems, guilt is almost always a combination of a manager and a punisher. The manager part uses guilt to keep the other parts in line. Guilt about wanting things, guilt about setting boundaries, guilt about healing and moving forward while others remain behind. And underneath the guilt, almost always, is an exile carrying shame. A younger part who somewhere along the way received the message that their needs, their desires, their very existence was a problem. To work with guilt is not to eliminate it entirely. It is to learn to question it, to ask each time it arrives, is this authentic? Is this my values telling me something genuinely needs to change? Or is this installed? Is this someone else's voice running in my head telling me I'm not allowed to be okay? So the question we're sitting with is, whose guilt is this? And if it is genuinely yours, what is it asking you to change? And if it's not, to whom do you need to return it to? So the chakra connection with guilt is the solar plexus and the root. The solar plexus is about personal power, self-worth, and the right to exist without owning or owing something. Chronic guilt depletes the solar plexus systematically. The ongoing message that you are responsible for everyone else's pain, that your needs are less important than everyone else's comfort, that moving forward is selfish, gradually erodes the energetic center of the self. A depleted solar plexus shows up as exhaustion, digestive issues, low confidence, and difficulty making decisions. And the root chakra, the foundational sense that you are allowed to be here, to take up space, to move forward in your life. Guilt that has been installed through abuse specifically targets the root. The message that your safety depends on someone else's approval, that you are only secure when you are acceptable, is a root chakra wound. And healing it means rebuilding the conviction, one small experience at a time, that you are allowed to exist freely and without debt. So the invitation would be to stand with both feet flat on the floor, feeling the ground beneath you, and say to yourself, I am allowed to be here. I am allowed to move forward. The guilt I carry is not the measure of my worth. Now, guilt that has been used as a tool of control in an abusive relationship creates a specific nervous system response that's worth understanding. Over time, the repeated experience of feeling guilty whenever you assert yourself, express a need, or move toward independence creates a conditioned response in the nervous system. The guilt arrives automatically, before any conscious evaluation, as a physical sensation of dread, contraction, or shame. This is not a character flaw. This is a classical conditioning operating at the nervous system level. The guilt has become a reflex, and like all nervous system responses, it can be reconditioned through consistent, compassionate counter experience. Every time you acknowledge a need without immediately suppressing it in guilt, every time you make a choice that's genuinely yours and you wait for the guilt to pass rather than acting on it, you are teaching the nervous system that the response no longer serves you. It takes time, but the nervous system learns. So perhaps a life lesson with guilt, when it is chronic and disproportionate, often carries the life lesson about discernment, specifically about learning to distinguish between responsibility and blame, between what is genuinely yours to carry and what was placed on you by someone who needed you to carry it. The recurring question is, if a person I love came to me carrying this same guilt, would I tell them it was theirs to hold? Because the compassion you freely extend to others is the same compassion you're learning in this lifetime to extend to yourself. What would change if you believed you were as worthy of it as everyone else you have ever tried to protect? Learning to connect with what your body's telling you is the first step. When guilt arrives, the somatic practice of placing a hand on the solar plexus and breathing warmth into that area while asking whose guilt this actually is begins to create the pause the nervous system needs before the automatic response takes over. Magnesium supports the nervous system through the physical effects of chronic guilt and anxiety. In the IFS practice of speaking directly to the guilt as a part, rather than having to identify with it, is one of the most powerful tools available for beginning to loosen its hold. Now let's talk about gout. Gout is a condition in which uric acid accumulates in the body and forms crystals that deposit in the joints, most commonly in the feet and particularly the big toe. The pain of a gout attack is described by those who experience it as among the most intense pain the body can produce. Sudden burning, exquisite in its sharpness, often arriving without warning in the middle of the night. In the body's language, I find gout one of the most precise and fascinating conditions in this alphabet, because what gout is at its physical level is crystallized acid, something that should have flowed, that should have moved through and been expelled, that has instead accumulated and hardened into sharp-edged crystals that embed themselves in the very joints of the feet, the parts of the body that carry us forward, that take the next step, that moves us through life. Let that image sit with you for a moment. Anger that did not flow, frustration that was not expressed, impatience that was swallowed day after day, year after year, eventually crystallizing, accumulating, and then arriving without warning as some of the sharpest pain the body knows, exactly in the place where movement forward was supposed to happen. Gout is, in the body's language, what happens to anger that was never allowed to move. Not dramatic anger, not the rage that breaks things, but the quiet, accumulated, chronic anger of someone who needed to control their environment because nothing else felt safe, who held the impatience and the frustration and the unexpressed need to be in charge of something because somewhere inside, nothing felt stable enough to let go. Louise Hay described gout as connected to the need to dominate, to impatience, and to anger. And when I think about who lives with gout, I recognize a pattern that is worth naming gently. Often it is people who carry enormous responsibility, who have been in positions where they felt they had to control things in order for them not to fall apart, who have a particular relationship with impatience, not because they are bad-tempered people, but because they have been in circumstances where things not going according to plan felt genuinely threatening. There's also a pride thread in the traditional understanding of gout, a resistance to surrendering control, to admitting vulnerability, to allowing things to be imperfect or unmanaged. The person who holds everything together on the outside, who never lets anyone see the cracks, who manages and plans and controls because to stop would be to fall, that person's anger has nowhere obvious to go. And the body, faithful as always, finds somewhere for it. In IFS, I think of gout as connected to a manager who has been running a very tight operation for a very long time. One who keeps things in order, maintains the structure, controls the outcomes, because underneath it there is an exile who is frightened of what happens when things are not controlled. The manager's impatience is the impatience of someone who needs everything to be a certain way because the alternative, the disorder, the vulnerability, the loss of control, is connected to something genuinely frightening in the past. So the question we're sitting with is, what have I been controlling because letting go felt too dangerous? And what anger, what frustration, what impatience have I been swallowing rather than expressing? Because the expression felt too risky or too unfamiliar. Now, the chakra connection is the root and the solar plexus. The foundation and the connection to groundedness is the root chakra. Forward movement and basic safety, The feet are governed by the root chakra. They are our literal and energetic contact with the ground, the means by which we move forward in life. When gout attacks the feet, the body is speaking about something in the root, a fear of moving forward, an unsafety in the basic structures of life, an anger at the foundation level that has never been fully expressed or resolved. And the solar plexus is the center of personal power, will, and control, the need to dominate, the impatience, and the suppressed anger that traditionally sit beneath gout are all solar plexus territory. When the personal power center has been running on control rather than authentic power, managing everything because trusting the natural flow has never felt safe, the resulting accumulation of unexpressed frustration can eventually crystallize in the body. So the invitation is, the next time you notice impatience or frustration arising, instead of swallowing it, ask it a question. And ask it, what are you actually trying to protect right now? What feels out of control that you need to manage? And let the feeling name what it is carrying rather than driving you into suppression. The physiological connection between gout and stress is well established. Cortisol, released chronically under prolonged stress, affects the kidney's ability to excrete uric acid efficiently, which means that people under chronic emotional stress have measurably higher uric acid levels than those who are not. The anger, impatience, and suppressed frustration that sit in the emotional roots of gout are not metaphorical contributors. They are directly implicated in the physiological mechanism. A nervous system running in chronic fight or flight produces the hormonal environment in which uric acid accumulates. And a person who has spent years in circumstances requiring control, management, and the suppression of authentic emotional response is a person whose nervous system has been running that program for a very long time. The gout is not the problem. It is the body's reporting of the problem. And the body, when it is finally given safety, support, and the space to express what has been crystallizing, has a remarkable capacity to begin to dissolve what it no longer needs to hold. So perhaps gout often carries a life lesson about surrender. Not the surrender of defeat, but the surrender of trust, the gradual, deeply uncomfortable practice of learning that not everything needs to be controlled in order for things to be okay. That vulnerability is not the same as danger. That the anger accumulated through years of tight management has somewhere else it can go. Somewhere healthier, somewhere more honest, somewhere that does not require the body to crystallize it in the joints of the feet. The question the body may be asking is, what would it feel like to loosen your grip just slightly? Not to let go of everything at once, just to open the hand by 1 degree and see the world, and it does not fall apart. Learning to connect with what your body's telling you is the first step. Dietary management of gout includes reducing high purine foods such as red meat and shellfish, increasing water intake significantly, and reducing alcohol. Tart cherry juice has a genuine research behind it for reducing uric acid levels. In the emotional work, finding safe, consistent, chosen ways to express the anger and impatience rather than suppressing them addresses the gout at the level of its deepest cause. So today we talked about 4 conditions: grief, the loss that's been waiting for permission to be fully felt; gut health, the second brain reporting faithfully on the emotional environment it has been living inside; and guilt, so often not yours, installed by someone who needed you to carry it and slowly, patiently waiting to be returned to where it belongs. Gout, anger crystallized in the very place where movement forward was supposed to happen, asking to be dissolved through the one thing that has always been its antidote: truth. expression, and release. All 4 messages from a body that has never once stopped working on your behalf. Through every difficult year, every relationship that cost too much, every moment you were told your feelings were wrong or your needs were inconvenient or your perception was not to be trusted, the body kept the record, faithfully, precisely, and without judgment. And now in this series, week by week, condition by condition, you're learning to read it. The reading is not the end of the journey, but it is the beginning of a different relationship with the body that has carried you through everything. A relationship built not on frustration or fighting, but on the same quality of attention, the same quality of care, the same quality of listening that you have spent your whole life giving to everyone else. It is time to give some of it here. Now let's begin your guided meditation. Find a comfortable position, feet flat on the floor. Both hands open in your lap and your palms facing up. Taking in one slow breath in through your nose and a nice, long, complete exhale through your mouth. And let that exhale carry something out with it. And do 2 more breaths just like that, each one a little slower and a little more complete. And begin to bring your awareness gently to your chest, the sternum, the heart space, the place where grief lives most honestly in the body. And place one hand there now. And breathe into it, not to fix anything, just to acknowledge. Just say to whatever is held here, I know you are here. I know how long you've been carrying this. And I'm giving you a little more space today. If anything wants to arise, a tightening, a fullness in the throat, just let it. Just let it be present. And breathe. Now bring your awareness to your belly, the gut, your second brain, and move your hand there now, or rest both hands gently on your belly. Breathe warmth into this place that has been registering the truth of your environments for your entire life. And then say to it, I know what you have been living inside. And I'm working. One breath, one practice at a time, to give you a safer world to do your work in. And breathe. Letting your body relax even deeper now. And bringing your awareness to your solar plexus, the center just above the navel, the place where guilt tends to live in the body. That compression in the center of the self. And place your hand there and slowly breathe into it. And ask with genuine curiosity, whose guilt is this? How much of what I am carrying was ever actually mine? And to whatever is there, say, you were given something to hold that was not yours. And you held it faithfully because you didn't know you could put it down. You can put it down now. It was never yours to carry. And breathe and feel that release. And now bring your awareness all the way down to your feet. Both feet flat on the floor, feeling the ground beneath them. And feel the solidity of what's holding you. The ground that is here, whether or not you are in control of anything. The earth that does not require your management to keep showing up. And to any anger, any frustration, any impatience that's been crystallizing somewhere it doesn't need to be, let it know it is allowed to move now. It has always been allowed to move forward. It is safe to move forward. The ground will hold you. And breathe. And now feel your entire body. The chest with a little more space in it. The belly a little warmer. The center a little lighter. And your feet more solidly connected to something steady. And speak this final thing to the infinite intelligence within you, to God, universe, or source, whatever resonates with you. You can say this out loud or in your mind. I'm learning to listen to all of it. The grief and the gut and the guilt and the anger. I'm learning the language. And I trust the body that has been speaking it. Faithfully, precisely, and with more love than I have always known how to receive. Thank you for not giving up. And I'm not giving up either. Now take one final deep breath in all the way. And as you exhale, let your whole body soften just 1 degree more than it was when we began. Begin to move your toes and your fingers, and when you're ready, gently and slowly open your eyes. Grief, gut health, guilt, and gout. 4 conditions, 4 forms of something that has been held, suppressed, swallowed, or crystallized. 4 messages from a body that has never once given up on getting through. Wherever you are with any of these today, whether one of them is yours or belongs to someone you love, please be gentle with yourself for the rest of today. This work asks something real of us. Let yourself rest in the knowing that your body is not your enemy. It never was. Next episode, we continue into the H's: heart conditions, hormonal imbalances, and hypothyroidism. 3 more conditions that, when you understand the emotional root beneath them, will never look random again. But before I close today, I want to mention something that's been coming up more and more in the community. Questions about specific conditions that do not fit neatly into the alphabetical form, but deserve their own conversation. Conditions like Guillain-Barré, a condition named after the 2 French neurologists who first identified, and multiple sclerosis, lupus, and others in the autoimmune family. Later in this series, I will be dedicating some special episodes specifically to the relationship between the immune system, chronic stress, and the nervous system, because this connection is one of the most important and least discussed areas in healing. If you or someone you love is living with an autoimmune condition, stay with us. Those conversations are coming, and I think it will change the way you understand what your body's been going through. You can find me here every week offering you a safe place to land. I also offer 2 other series, Soul Whispers and The Language of Healing. And if today names something that's been living in your body without language, the grief in the chest, the guilt that's never truly belonged to you, the anger that crystallized somewhere it should not, this work goes much deeper in one-to-one sessions. If you're interested, I have the link below to my website. Remember, the doctor dresses the wound, and the infinite healing intelligence within you does the rest. Before you go, I would love to hear from you. Please leave a comment and tell me, did something land today? Which of these 4 conditions spoke to something you recognize in yourself or someone you love? Name it. Your words do matter to me and to the person scrolling past who needed to see that they are not alone. If The Body Speaks is helping you, I really hope you subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you'd be so kind to leave a thumbs up and a comment, I would greatly appreciate it. And share this with one person whose body's been speaking and hasn't yet found the right language. Remember, my friend, your body has always been on your side. Till next week, love and hugs.